The MoneroTopia Price Report segment is sponsored by Exolix, a privacy-focused, non-custodial instant crypto exchange. Go to exolix.com to enjoy secure and completely anonymous swaps with no KYC or sign-up. Swap between Monero and 2,000 plus assets at the most competitive rates and with no limits. Exolix.com, your fast and secure way to privacy.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Howdy, GM.
What's going on, man?
So great to reconnect with you after this long hiatus.
Yeah, I know. It was like we were like on a ship together at sea on an adventure.
Yeah, man, the conference was fire this year. Like, I mean, it was good last year, but I felt like it was just even better this year.
Yeah, it was. I guess because it was bigger, right? We had new faces too. We had new energy. Yeah. And I do think the marketplace thing played a bigger role in it this time, like because we were more successful with that. Yeah, something.
Yeah, just like knowing ahead of time that I was going to be able to. I mean, I kind of like we sort of knew ahead of time, but just being more comfortable with it. Like, oh yeah, all the vendors take it. There's this one guy selling craft beer, and I was just like cleaning him out. I still got to share with him how to get out of Monero. He was like, "Hey, how do I get back into pesos?" It's like
he's been asking you.
He hasn't. He has my WhatsApp number, so I'm kind of caught. Like, should I volunteer? You know, because there's ways and means. They're not entirely corporate in nature. But there's ways to get into pesos and out of pesos here. Yeah, but I'm like, well, I don't know. He hasn't asked me yet, so
it's funny because I'm in a WhatsApp chat with like all the vendors.
Nice.
Because I was onboarding them manually using ChatGPT, like talking to them in anticipation of the conference and walking each one through and getting them to download the wallet beforehand. So now it's like they're continuing to ask me questions. It's like I kind of invented like a little Monero hotline. It's not a bad idea to have like some kind of auto ChatGPT Monero helpline.
Yeah, actually, that's not a bad idea.
That's actually
if you train it on Cake Wallet's interface.
Yeah,
then it can
I'm basically doing it through WhatsApp. It would be good to like build something that could be built into a WhatsApp because, for our purposes, South America, everybody's on WhatsApp, so it'd be very accessible.
Yeah, I'm slightly annoyed by that because I just hate WhatsApp. I mean, obviously it's Facebook, etc. But it's just like it doesn't work as well as Telegram. Like if you're gonna, surrender all your data and stuff, like Telegram's just easier.
Yeah. I'm just the network effect. Everybody in South America uses WhatsApp.
Yeah, it's too late. Telegram is a shitcoin for them to use maximalist kind of language.
To be fair, at this point, I prefer WhatsApp over Telegram because it is end-to-end encrypted by default. But yeah, Telegram is nicer to use.
Yeah, and also they didn't kick you off or WhatsApp.
And yeah, I never. Well, we'll see. We'll see if they do. I don't know. I've only made a WhatsApp recently. See, I'm not going to use it for much at all. It was mostly for talking to people who was at the conference. We'll see.
But this is pretty amazing right here, right? This is like a lot of the value of the conference is right here because now we could continue to talk to all these vendors, continue to teach them. It's really just, we talk about like how do we get actual real world adoption? It's just education. It's just people just having to get on the same level that we're at, and that's just really taking time with them to teach them. They've already experienced Monero, right? They've received some Monero. Some of them kept Monero. Now they just need to be taught as to why it might make sense to continue to use it. And really what they need to be taught is just how to liquidate it when they need to. Like it does, like they were buying it off of us there, but they should be able to walk away from there confidently knowing, all right, I don't need to liquidate it now, but I can very easily get into pesos if I need to. Here's how I do it, right? Like it's not that big a leap. It's just education, right? They need to be able to use like the instant exchanges in Cake or buying gift cards, even going so far as to using Havino, right? Why not like get them at that level? You get what I'm saying? This is kind of like my big takeaway with the conference is if we want to scale it to the next level and actual gross like steady use and adoption at Huerta Roma, we just need to get the vendors to learn more about Monero to the point where they're perfectly comfortable with always receiving it as an option. And they're like, okay, I have some Monero. I know how to quickly turn it into pesos if I need to, but I'm totally okay with receiving it. And we get them to that point, and then they're just always open to receiving Monero throughout the year. And then the MoneroTopia conference comes down there once a year and kind of rallies things up. But it becomes a place that's like known globally where you can go and spend some Monero. This is the thinking, the vision. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I'm down. I think it's a reasonably good vision. Like the guy that was selling that craft beer, I'm gonna see if I can convince him to, because he comes to my town every now and then. So I'm gonna see if I can convince him to accept Monero for, a few cases of craft beer every now and again.
Cool.
I found a guy that sold honey, but I didn't have much time, so I was like, "Hey, here's some pesos," and bought some honey off him. But I didn't try and like onboard him to Monero.
Yeah, I mean, they also have every week they have going in there like really good farmers markets. So I mean, you if we make Monero part of Huerta Roma culture, you're having like the best marketplaces you can find, like accepting Monero. Like if you think about it, if you think about places you could go in the world where you could, buy things directly, it's pretty cool. It's all like handcrafted quality things. And then they have really good farmers markets during the week, like really good produce that you see coming in. It would be pretty desirable. And it's in
quite
a
lot
major
of people, obviously, too, here in Mexico that would be interested.
it's in a major city that's globally accessible. People will fly in from Germany just to go spend time in Roma because they know they could spend their Monero there. It's like very accessible. I don't know. I think there's a lot of potential there with trying to focus on it as a little Monero accepting utopia. I mean, if it can't work there, right? Where could it work? I guess like Argentina or something, right?
Yeah, it feels like Argentina. I mean, really, it feels like Argentina is like. I mean, obviously, there's no reason we can't do multiple spots at the same time, but
yeah.
Argentina, I don't know. I'm curious how that dollarization process goes in Argentina, and if they're gonna sort of ditch crypto a little bit as they dollarize, like more formally. Right now, they haven't formally dollarized to any degree. They're just kind of like, still informally. But I think that's still the plan, and I'm pretty sure that's exactly what the U.S. government wants.
Fairly reasonable. Saying Portugal, yeah, that's on the top of my list too.
Oh, that'd be a really cool spot.
That could start organically accepting it. Obviously, Prague, right? They have MoneroCon there. It's kind of taking hold a little bit.
Yeah, how is that? So people, the MoneroCon, does it enjoy some kind of persistent Monero presence after the conference?
I think so, like locally, yeah. I mean, I think the cafe continues to accept it there.
Yeah, the cafe, they have these little terminals that just use BTC Pay. So it's like accepted whenever. I mean, that's just kind of the place it is. It's kind of like a hacker space anyway. It's not as cool as like some local business that just like some restaurant that just happens to accept crypto. But it's a cafe and bar that I guess they do year round. I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, I think they do.
I think they do. Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll get into it more. I see we have Alaskan on ready to jump on. We'll be talking about this all afternoon, but I guess let's do price report.
Yeah, let's knock out the price here.
Get away, buddy.
Oh
yeah, let's look at our terrible, awful predictions that all went to
oh my
the
God.
toilet. Right
Dude,
before the
Monero,
conference.
like that was the other thing about MoneroTopia. Like we're just getting hammered in price. Like all other cryptos are going up, and Monero is just only in Monero land. It's
It
like
kind of makes sense because people are
it's a
using
constant
people are
struggle.
spending their Monero on flights and on coin cards and all kinds of stuff, right? So we're spending money at the conference and leading up into the conference. So it really kind of makes sense. Yeah, we took a nice dip. That's what this whole that's part of what this dip is right here.
We use it, we win, guys. Wow, yeah. Look at our predictions. Oh my god. We'll get there.
Yeah. Our transactions actually went up. Let's see. I was looking at the moving
Nice.
raw values. Let's go to the raw values. Yeah, so we're kind of basically just below that 30K level for the past I guess for about the past week or so. So that's pretty good, I guess, right? There's a slight bump up here. This it's hard to call this sustained, but it is longer than, you know, it does feel a little bit more sustained perhaps than other moves. All of this obviously being the potential black marble attack or just the stress testing or whatever happened there that we talked about so much. But yeah, I mean, like maybe this can continue, right? Like we've got the bull market going on. Obviously we had MoneroTopia happen, but you know, we still seem to be around that 30,000 mark. So who knows? Maybe we can actually keep a higher level of transactions. One thing I was doing was just checking out the moving averages because, you know,
send those XMR chats, guys. Send those XMR chats. You send
by all means
1 cent.
Yeah, so for a long time, you know, if you look back to the beginning of Monero's history, you know, we had this kind of like we were going up, and then we kind of peaked out here in 2021 and took a little bit of a dip. So let's zoom in a little bit. Took a little bit of a dip on the transaction counts for a while, and it looks like, you know, we're ever so slightly in an uptrend again. It might be a little bit early to call this an uptrend, but it does look a little bit like that. So perhaps we can break that 30,000 threshold on the long-term moving averages, and then maybe go higher. Right, that would be nice. But you know, I guess Monero will tell us all when it wants to do that, right? When it's ready. As far as the price for Monero versus US dollar, nothing has happened. We took a dip during the conference and then came back up. Currently, I mean, it does feel like we're ever so slightly above the traditional stablecoin price of 150. Right? We're at 160, so we've almost moved 10%. You know, on average. At some point, again, like we've talked about, this chart's going to break towards the upside. I redrew this line a little bit. I extended this line. So ever since the Binance delisting back in January, there's been like, you know, kind of the bottom has kept like touching this line. So maybe this line acts as support now. It would be far less significant in my mind than just the standard deviations, right? The blue bands here, the orange bands here, right? Those are very, very firmly set at this point. But you know, volatility is constraining. At some point, Monero price is going to break one direction or the other. Obviously, it seems to me, you know, we're in a bull market. Eventually, that is going to be towards the upside. I think everybody here knows that when the cabal pumps the crypto prices, they don't send it to Monero. It's exactly like when the cabal pumps the stock market, they don't send it into gold. They're not interested in helping gold. They want to suppress it as much as possible. And we have the documentation. We know that these guys have talked about, hey, what's one of the early easiest things we can do to you know, to stop Monero, to try and suppress Monero? Price attacks was their number one thing. Because they don't want to look like they're attacking Monero, right? And I feel like, you know, all the delisting stuff was them push coming to shove. Effectively, they're like, hey, all right, we've got to find a way to keep the price down. We've got to find a way to keep people away from Monero. We've got to delist it now because I think Monero was starting to reach kind of maybe critical threshold in terms of reputation, in terms of usage, in terms of just everybody knowing about it in crypto, right? Because there was a lot of people that either didn't know about it or hadn't really heard much about it. I think the entire crypto space now knows about Monero pretty much for the most part, you know, except for kind of like the total normies that are like, oh yeah, I bought some Doge because it seems like I like dogs. So except for those kind of guys, like the rest of the actual crypto ecosystem knows about Monero and basically respects it. If MoneroTopia this year didn't show that, I mean, it was incredible, man. There's so many people there. We have so many more big names now that just weren't into Monero previously, and now they are. So yeah, I mean, all that ties together. It seems to me that you know, the cabal is now entering to a more overt attack stage against Monero, whereas the last bull market, it was basically a covert attack. So anyways, that's kind of a long-winded way of saying that, yeah, I mean, our ratio against Bitcoin here is suffering. My heart is suffering. I play shitcoin, so my bags are fine, but my heart suffers. This is painful, right, to watch this happen. I guess, it wouldn't be entirely surprising to end up tagging these lows down here, right? These lows from back in 2015, 2016. That's really unfortunate. Cue all the arguments from the maximalists, right? From the price bros that apparently only care about their bags. I think it's funny when I'm always prepared with charts when they start like, oh, well, it's a shitcoin and look at the chart. It's like, okay, well, let me show you Bitcoin versus Nvidia, right? let me show you Bitcoin versus Sol, right? And it's like, if you want to make that your argument, then you got to abandon Bitcoin and go to Sol is apparently the play there. So anyways, yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry, bros. What are we going to do? Like, this looks like shit. This chart looks like dog shit. And it looks like it is probably going to continue to go down. The wave magic would suggest that Monero price is going to continue to go down, right? These bands are already curling under. Usually you might tag these bands at some point and then continue down sort of in between this red, right? That'll curl under. These will move down like that. And then you'll see price wander on down until it hits some low. Probably that 0.0001 level. That's probably where you can expect us to hit now at this point. There's a lot of this, will change and get influenced by this macro crash, this this claimed macro crash that I've been, talking about. My window here was basically sometime from the election up until January 20th. That's like my sweet spot where I expect, my like most probable macro crash, right? So that it could still be 2 months away or almost 2 months away before we get this thing. So, just keep that in mind. The current trends of the market are likely to continue until we get this macro crash. And then to me, that macro crash is free money, right? That's where you go high risk, because in reality, that risk drops massively, almost to zero, right? Risk drops to near zero when you get a macro crash plus intervention. So I want to be careful with this too, guys. Like, I want you guys to really understand, when the macro crash happens, it usually takes like a month before things bottom. I think those timelines accelerate now because because people are aware of this now. So when the macro crash happens and then the Fed intervenes in the emergency monetary measures and everyone like breathes a sigh of relief, it still might take a couple weeks for the full bottom to hit, right? So just keep that in mind when you're like thinking about your strategy. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. We did have a question from Sex Workers Matter. He says, thanks to Body for his fantastic prices report in situ on X. A question though, are we simply to DCA as normal, or should we set aside a significant capital to anticipate the move down and buy at a significant percentage retracement? Yeah, there's actually a very specific strategy I have for that. It's a simple strategy, and I'll tell you guys about that in a little bit. Actually, you know what? Why don't we just tell you about it right now? So, Sex Workers Matter. The best thing I think is to sort of divide your stack into thirds. Okay, 1/3 you just DCA, right? You just no brainer. Okay, I have extra money. And let me rephrase this: 1/3 of your investable income, right? So every month you're going to get paid something. You have expenses, and then you're going to have something left over. That's your investable income. Divide that into thirds. 1/3 of that just DCA all the time, like just no brainer, just fucking DCA every single time. The other third of that, what you do is you kind of play with it. If it's a good time to buy, if the market's low, if there's blood in the streets, then you buy, right? You just DCA right there. But if things are high or they're on a big pump, you might say, yeah, you know what? Let me just set this cash aside a little bit here. And, I might wait a couple weeks on a retracement, something, but your goal is to get into the market with that other third. You're just trying to play it a little bit smartly, right? And then finally, that last third, you set it aside, right? You set that aside as either a trading stack. In this case, I would say set it aside as cash. Take that third and set it aside and just hold it as cash, or not even gold, right? Because gold crashes with the rest of the macro when the macro crash happens. So set that aside as cash, just waiting for this macro crash to happen. And that's specifically at this moment right now. I wouldn't have told you to do that at the beginning of the year, but at this moment, I think that's a good thing to do. So that 1/3, that last third, is basically like a trading stack, right? You might buy, you might sell, you might move, make some moves, whatever, try and do some trading jujitsu. But in general, in this moment, I think it's a good idea to save cash for that macro crash, because that is where you're like, there's this concept called risk adjusted returns. And a lot of the big finance bros do this because, yeah, you might make big returns on some shitcoin, but that was extreme risk, right? So it's like, in some ways, you have to adjust your returns for the amount of risk that you took. So if you got massive gains on very little risk, that's an even bigger gain than it might seem, right? Or even if you got moderate gains on near zero risk, that kind of return is actually significantly more, which is why I really have placed a lot of emphasis on this macro crash personally, because it's like, I hate taking risk, right? Like, I want to protect my stack. And so one of the ways I do that is by really trying not to trade too much and buying little bits of high risk stuff at the right moments, and then hoping that I can catch a 2x or 5x or something. That's kind of like, that's sort of the way that my personal, quote unquote, trading investment strategy has evolved. But anyways, yeah, so hopefully that answers your question there. Let me check the super chats here, make sure the XMR chats, I'm sorry, they are not, I mean, they are also super, but yeah, okay, there's nothing there. Okay, so we covered Monero. Nothing else going on there. Monero versus gold, as we talked about, Monero versus gold is still just kind of trending inside of these the standard deviations, the shorter term lower standard deviation and the longer term lower standard deviation. So nothing to see there really. I guess if we want to look at more pain, if we're interested in having more pain, this is Monero versus shitcoins, right? Monero versus Total 3, which is Total 3 is total cryptocurrency market cap minus Bitcoin minus Ethereum, right? Minus daddy and mommy. So yeah, we're also doing pretty shitty compared to those guys as well. It's just part of the game, guys. Like, this is part of the fight. This is part of the war that you have to expect, right? We saw it last bull market. It should be no surprise for us to see this again. We want to be hopeful. We want to think, hey, now is our time to shine. But when you're printing a cool $1 billion of Tether every week, no problem, and the United States government is like, hey, Tether, you will buy our bonds now. That money is not going into Monero, guys. It's going to go into Bitcoin, the state-supported, state-sponsored chain. It's going to go into Ethereum, which probably will also become, the state-sponsored chain soon enough. It's going to go into shitcoins, right? So just know that's the game. Don't cry yourself to sleep at night. Stand tall and keep going. Okay, let's see. You know what? Let's go ahead and take a look at the privacy coins as well. Xano, surprisingly, has not pumped with the rest of the market. But hey, maybe not too surprisingly, right? Because again, if Xano is really a project that has some utility in the privacy space, I don't think the government's going to want to pump that coin either. I think Xano has made these gains on the basis of organic investors. So that would be my take on why Xano has sort of leveled off here, while the rest of the market pumped. But really cry that hard, you got a shitload of gains right here, all the way up to the top. It's just consolidating, guys. This will start moving. One thing that'll probably happen is, the privacy bros will get their shitcoin gains elsewhere, and then eventually they'll rotate into Monero. So Monero will eventually see, and Xano, and by proxy, other good crypto projects, they will see, move. But like we've said, in fits and starts, it'll happen counter-cyclically in fits and starts. So just be aware of that. Let's see here. Checking the comments. HBAR did a 3x. Okay, maybe we'll take a look at HBAR. It has nothing to do with privacy, but yeah, we'll take a look there. I don't remember what I said about HBAR, to be honest. If you want to remind me, I think I said that it was probably a bottoming pattern. I'm pretty sure I said that. Okay, anyways, Firo actually broke out, right? Firo had it was kind of in this pennant, in this I guess pennants are for when things are at the top, but this was at the bottom. Anyways, this thing broke out, and let's kind of move here. 40%. Yeah, that's pretty good. So Firo is getting back into their standard deviation bands. They've actually moved out of it. Usually on these charts, I expect them to make the blue bands, right? So this thing, it kind of did already. Actually, if you take a look at that little guy right there kind of did make it already. So I don't know. I haven't really heard anyone talk about Firo, so I'm not even sure we have Firo investors here. Pyrotine, they managed to get a good little pump here out of the recent action. That's suspicious to me, right? Any privacy coins that are right, this thing is pumping, but Monero isn't pumping, and Xano isn't pumping. Like, that is sus to me, but it is such a small coin that I feel like it's probably easy to move around. So to me, this is sus. It means that the guys that are kind of in control of this coin are probably there's probably some background person that made this happen. Anyways, I think that was like a 2x, 150%, 2.5. Yeah, I mean, we'll see. Maybe this thing can continue. The one that's really crazy to me here is Zcash, right? Zcash pumps pretty bigly. 60%. Yeah. I mean, the chart looks good, right? The wave magic was already curling up. The blue bands were curling up. So this was actually, especially at a point like either right here and especially at a point like right here, that would have been easy long if you were, if you wanted to trade that. So at the moment, I would say it looks like it's got some resistance here. It's at the clusters of moving averages. That's those white bands right here. You would say on a long-term basis in a bullish scenario, which it's hard to say that we're not in a bullish scenario, you would expect this chart to try and make it to the blue bands to the top side here. So that would be about another 80%. So that could be a swing trade. Just know that this thing might, it might pull back, or maybe it just goes straight there. As long as you don't take leverage on this coin, you just buy it outright. You could probably hope to catch, at least like 50 to 80% there. And then we can look at the Monero versus the Zcash price. This one is also kind of sad, just a lot of sad faces today on the charts. What can I say? Yeah, I mean, we've lost a good bit of value relative to the corporately approved, supported, and sponsored shitcoin. I'm sorry to call it a shitcoin. It has interesting tech, Zcash bros, but I mean, this is extremely, again, it's just suspect. It's so suspect. Why does Zcash pump but not Monero? There's no transactions. No one's using it on the dark web. They don't have a big fucking conference every year. Like, how is this thing pumping but Monero isn't? It just screams manipulation. It just screams nefarious actors in the background. Okay, whatever. We lost 70% relative to Zcash, but I mean, look at the full history of this chart, and it's like, well, yeah, okay, I guess that's not too big a deal. Same thing happened last bull market. Alrighty. So I think that's about what we've got here for the privacy coins today. We'll take a look at HBAR here in a second, but first, let's talk about Bitcoin, right? Obviously, we want to talk about Bitcoin. So hopefully you guys can see all of the purple bands. The purple bands was kind of a reason why this is probably a month or two ago now. Actually, the last time that we talked, was it? There was a moment where we talked and we said, hey, these bands are curling up. This is like actually very bullish wave magic. Oh, that's right. It was the election. One of the reasons that that 100K was a big prominent spot in my mind was because of these purple bands, right? Because the top of these purple bands do tend to provide resistance. So right now, and also 100K is just like a nice big round number. Everyone's like, hey, 100K Christmas, right? Finally, y'all got it. Congratulations, Maxi Bros. You 100K 3 years later. I wonder how many more of their price predictions will eventually come true. Anyway, so Bitcoin is taking a little breather right here. It could definitely, especially if the macro crash doesn't happen towards, the middle of January, it could continue running, like hypothetically. After some consolidation, it could continue running. Although what we have seen for the past year or so is effectively you get these massive pumps to the upside, right? You smash, and then you find a spot, and then you just languish, you just sideways until you break it again. That's been the name of the game here in the Bitcoin price action for at least a year, almost 2 years now. Let's take a look here. Let's go backwards. Yeah, for 2 years now. So, I don't really have a strong opinion exactly on how long this thing will languish. But at the moment, this is quite bullish. Like in terms of the wave magic action, like this is even more bullish than the kind of action that we had seen previously since the bottom, right? Obviously, we're looking here at 2022 now at the very bottom. This action was like cautiously optimistic, right? But what has happened recently has been unequivocally bullish, right? You had this big pump towards the all-time high, a long consolidation period until looky right here. The upper standard deviations, that's where the support was found, right? These upper standard deviation bands is exactly where that support was found. And then you come to the shorter term bands, and those things curl up more quickly, right? Because they respond faster to price movements. And this whole thing is bullish now. Like it's just very bullish. Even in a big crash scenario, like let's suppose there's a macro crash or whatever that we keep talking about. Even in that scenario, I don't expect we're going to the lower regression analysis. We're not touching that. Like we've come as close as we're going to come to it. In a macro crash scenario, at worst, I would expect to maybe hit here or maybe hit here, right? That would be a big dump, of course. Let's see how far down that would be. Let's do a measurement. 50%. Yeah, I mean, 50% down would be what you would expect for a macro crash. But yeah, I mean, I would expect it to touch one of these major areas somewhere in this area, and then move back towards the upside, and that might be the last time that you ever see 50K. So. Yeah, that's what coin looks like right now. I don't have any strong opinions on whether it continues to go immediately or whether it needs some like consolidation period. Maybe I'm hoping I can form some more opinions at some point here, but I don't have a good solid reasoning behind it. Let's take a look at Bitcoin dominance. Effectively, Bitcoin dominance came very close to the upper standard deviation. To the upper standard deviation levels here. These are like very, very long-term ones. You can see that they were formed back in 2021, right? So when Bitcoin spiked up crazy high on the dominance back in 2020, the end of 2020, the beginning of 2021, and then came back down, right? I don't know if we're at exactly the point for altcoins to just completely go on a tear. This channel here, right? I don't know if you can see that. Let me zoom in. This channel right here, and I kind of redrew the line a little bit. I redrew this upper line, but basically Bitcoin dominance is sitting here in this channel. It's reasonable that it might come up to the top side one more time here to tag that. Maybe that's when things break 100K, right? I think that'll be a lot of peace in people's mind to break 100K, and then maybe close a couple weeks above 100K. That will make people feel a lot more comfortable. Also, we'll be looking at Tether maybe to see what they're up to. Because I mean, we've talked about the Tether milkshake, right? Tether is effectively now an extension of US dollar power in the wake of the expiration of the petrodollar of the Saudi agreement. It's a genius move. It's a brilliant fucking move, guys. And they started it. They planned it out from probably as early as 2019. It's smart. It's definitely supporting price, right? It definitely helps price. It definitely detracts from actually being used as currency. What are you going to do? At the moment, it also seems like MicroStrategy is playing a moment. Looks like we got a comment from Fairly Reasonable Investor. He's talking about MicroStrategy. It does seem like they are doing a little bit of leverage. They're leveraging their stock to buy more Bitcoin. I want to say they bought like 100,000 Bitcoin. I think that's the number. Don't quote me on that. They're doing a lot to support price right here. It's a bit of a gamble. I feel like Michael Saylor he seems like Fed Boy to me. Like, he seems like either he's an agent or he loves being useful to those guys, right? Who knows? He just seems like he's part of that cabal. He's in the club. He is a big part of the way that they're integrating Bitcoin into the government, the way that they're integrating the Bitcoin Tether complex into the extension of the US dollar power in the crypto ecosystem, the backdoor CBDC, the quasi CBDC, all that kind of language. So anyways, there's Bitcoin today. Let's take a look at some of the shit coins. What are they up to? XRP has pumped bigly. That makes sense. They kind of their bull market action got muted a little bit last time because they were getting attacked by the SEC, but Gary Gensler tendered his resignation. So you can expect some of these projects that were being attacked. They should get this sort of like bump here from the SEC changeover that is anticipated now. And then maybe when Trump actually takes office, maybe they'll get a further bump. That would make sense. I don't know. Maybe XRP continues running. Maybe it doesn't. But yeah, so this is what shitcoins look like. Kind of a mixed bag. I mean, they're all basically, everything pumped pretty good and things are cooling off here, but there's still a few of them that are still kind of pumping. Like XRP, this action tells me that I'm not looking at the actual price chart here, but the way that Z-scores work, you've got peak, peak, peak. Every one of these peaks can often be a new high in the price. So probably XRP is actually flying quite high at the moment. Dog coins, they've actually looks like they pulled back quite a lot. I mean, obviously, really the time to get into shit coins is that moment when Bitcoin is starting to fly high. That's really your best opportunity there. Ethereum versus Bitcoin, this chart's been in the dumps. Maybe it's bottoming here. This wouldn't be clean wave magic action if it was a bottom, but it hypothetically could be. I would guess in a macro crash that this line will actually get touched right down here. This will actually get touched cleanly. Ethereum will crash more than Bitcoin, probably touch this, and then some reversal will happen after an intervention or whatever. But who knows? I mean, maybe they can't intervene, right? Maybe there's an inflation problem, right? If they intervene again, maybe there's too much inflation, so maybe they have to like mini intervene, right? I don't know. That's just kind of like brainstorming open thoughts there. That's not a fully formed thought for you guys. Bitcoin versus the NASDAQ. We can see that Bitcoin has finally put on a new all-time high versus the NASDAQ. Actually, I take it back. It has tagged the previous all-time high relative to the NASDAQ. So, I mean, that's good. That's a good sign. You want to outperform the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ is it's probably your best, like one of your best risk-adjusted returns, right? The NASDAQ is higher risk than the S&P because it's tech stocks. But you get more returns on the NASDAQ. So if you're beating the NASDAQ, pretty good because that's where the printed money goes, right? The government pumps that into the stock market, particularly into the NASDAQ. And nowadays it's all about the AI craze. Yeah, you know what? Let me oh shit, XMR chat is broken. Oh no. The XMR chat page is broken. Okay. Please use XMR
Just for
chat.
MoneroTopia.
Oh, okay. At Monero Talk. I thought it was always Monero Talk.
It was, and I guess they created a MoneroTopia one, but it doesn't seem to be showing up
Oh, okay.
in the comments. So yeah, just use MoneroTalk, guys, and your comment will show up. Thank you,
Excellent.
Anon.
Let me see. Do we have one? We've got Anon here. Tipped 0.0015 XMR. The link given in the YouTube comments was from MoneroTopia. Oh, okay.
Yeah, we will switch to probably MoneroTopia once it's working again, but for now, choose MoneroTalk. Thank you, Harold Bishop. Yes, MoneroTalk is back, the best podcast in town. Yes, it is back after a long week. Like I know it's a whole week we're gone. It's crazy.
A well-deserved great gentleman.
The Maker tip 50 cents. Welcome back. Thank you.
Okay.
And you might have a couple questions.
Say what?
You might have a couple price-related questions in the comments. You can take a look at that if you want.
Oh, in YouTube?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So we had the H bar. Let me see. Delisting was bullish. Let's see. Yeah, fairly reasonable investor said delisting will be bullish because that's confirmation as being a real threat. Yep, 100%. I mean, whether it's bullish, I'm not totally sure. I think we still have some ways to go to get the liquidity that we need on the dexes. But I do think in time, it's like, yeah, people do realize, hey, this is the real deal. Monero is actually a threat, or they wouldn't do that. Yeah. So, oh, you know what? He asked about H bar. So let's take a look at H bar. Let me go to my quad charts. Yeah, we'll pull up H bar right here. H bar USD. Oh, you know what? Crypto. If I could spell crypto H bar. Yeah, if you want the longest version of any crypto chart, type crypto : and then the chart that you're looking for. Yeah. So, oh shit. Okay. Nice. H bar actually did put on. Was it 30%? That's fairly tame in the environment that we're in right now. Like, I bought a shit coin here or there that's done a 2x now at this point. And 2x is like that's not even bragging rights, right? There's other coins that are doing even more than that. But 2x is nice. 2x feels good, right? Feels good, man. H bar is a little bit tame here, but you still have a ways to go, right? You could hypothetically from the bottom here. Actually, when did we talk about it? I think it was right around here. Maybe it was here. Shit. Oh, wow. Okay. No, I take it back. I'm on the 1 hour chart. That's why. There we go. Okay. All right. Everything I just said, I take it back. Scratch that. Yeah. We were talking about H bar somewhere around here. I said it's probably looks like a bottoming pattern, and holy shit. Okay. That's a 3x. That's a 3x, bro. Nice. I'm assuming that you bought H bar. So that's fantastic gains. Holy shit. Good job. Good job. Fairly reasonable investor. Congratulations on your gains, sir. Pete Niles, Silicon Valley or New York City or DC or Hollywood, always go question the Fed boys because it's all about money. Yeah. Okay. I guess we can play around. It's been a while. We can take a little bit longer today. H bar versus XRP. That's the recommendation here. H bar divided by crypto XRP USD. Hey, what the hell? Maybe because I said crypt instead of crypto. All right, so this is how H bar is doing relative to XRP. Holy shit, I guess that means XRP really is pumping. All right, let's take a look at XRP USD. Damn, that is a mega pump. 3x, yeah, that's a pretty good pump. Yeah. I mean, it's the time for it's the time shitcoin, boys and girls. Like it really is. We could look at so many different shitcoins that have put on these crazy big gains, 3x and whatnot. It's kind of that season, right? And going back to that Bitcoin dominance chart, you'll notice there's a lot more room to run here, right? This is just a tiny little blip. Some of these coins could run up massively. The total crypto market cap is currently at 3 trillion, just above 3 trillion, and that's where we hit in 2021. I kind of consider 2021 the .com crash of crypto. But it's so degenerate. It's just like in 3 years later it came back, whereas .com took like a decade to come back. But yeah, I mean, so looking at the Bitcoin dominance chart, like there's just going to be crazy gains to be had in so many different coins. XRP, I'm not recommending it, but it's one of those coins that you could foresee that it might have some pretty good gains. So Let's see. Let's go to the macro, and then we'll close it out with some of the macro. Okay, Dixie. This is a boring chart, right? There's nothing to be seen here. Just kind of oscillating. Although it looks like the volatility has increased a little bit here. It's interesting that everything pumped so hard while Dixie also went up. The dollar index was increasing while everything else pumped. Everything else except for gold. Gold actually took a bit of a break here. These are the monthly candles, right? So just to give you the big eagle eye perspective, the 30,000 foot view, you'll notice that we did break the resistance, right? That rising triangle, and we closed a month above it. It looks so today is actually today is actually the 30th. So today will be the monthly close on this candle here, which will be below that line, but still kind of right at that line. Anyways, it's about whether you get this confirmation, right? You really want to see 2 monthly candles close above your strong resistance level, and that kind of tells you like, hey, okay, it's really on. At the moment, that's not what's happening. Probably the dollar index going up is a factor in that, but this is fine. Like, this is not a problem. Things are effectively consolidating at exactly the resistance you would expect. Macro crash sends this thing down, whatever. Okay, that you just have to expect that's going to happen. Right now, I mean, it seems like the play is stocks and crypto, right? That's the play. So I'm wondering if gold can continue trying to go higher. Maybe it can. I was really, in terms of the wave magic, right? So forgetting the pleb lines for a moment, these purple bands are probably a long-term target. Particularly if the macro crash plus intervention happens. Effectively, this thing will crash down and then recover and then make some big gains all the way up to the top of that purple line. Everything else will also be gaining at the same time. So it's kind of like, well, but still, gold probably has more gains, but it might not come soon. Just expect that gold could languish here for some period of time. It could be weeks, maybe it could even months before gold actually puts on another strong all-time high. Maybe it could just be next week, right? Like, I don't know. I don't know, but it's kind of like in this no man's land. Like, for a long time, I'm like, gold, right? Keep holding. It's going to go up. Like, this is a safe play. This will preserve your value. It might not make you rich, but you'll preserve your value. At this moment, in terms of a gold trade, like, this is no man's land to me. It's like, I don't feel like I'd want to sell, but I couldn't buy. And maybe that's why price is kind of chopping here around that area. So, I don't know if anyone here probably cares about the peso, but the US dollar versus the peso is still at about 20. But also, it's hitting these like very long-term resistance upper standard deviation levels. So, I mean, maybe it could come up here, kind of oscillate around there a little bit. You get another like 5% on the peso. If you're a US dollar holder that likes to occasionally flip into pesos, I know probably there's maybe a few viewers that are like that are like me. The reverse repos are still on the low side. There's still a little bit of cash. There's about 200 billion left here. Hypothetically, this could fuel more stock market gains, right? This thing going down, so cash coming out of reverse repos, which is basically kind of like a bond, but not really. It's like a Federal Reserve bond. They use language that any actual finance bro would just be shaking their head at me for saying that. But effectively, the Federal Reserve holds this money overnight. You get the Federal Reserve funds rate. And so that is liquid money that can just move into risk at any time, which means that there's 200 billion more dollars that could hypothetically move into risk. So that could fuel some more stock market gains. At the same time, we've been watching this oil chart. We talked about, hey, we're getting into this level right here. So far, this isn't total breakdown. This is like a little breakdown. But really what we're looking for is to get into this zone. And that's where I started thinking, okay, the crash is actually getting soon. Like, this kind of action on that little orange, yellow squiggly, that's the kind of action that I'll be saying it's imminent, it's incipient. Sell your bag so that you can rebuy. But I'm not saying that yet. Again, it's like just trying to keep the big picture here, macro crash thesis on the table, but we're not there yet, right? It's not imminent yet. So, and again, the last time they did a big pump before the crash happened in the medical thing that went down in 2020. So yeah, just know that markets can pump bigly before they crash, and that's also part of the game to try and keep you in the market, right? Keep you in the S&P. Yeah, so the S&Ps, we're still basically the same kind of levels where we talked about. Let's go to the month. Actually, let's go to the 3 month, because this is a long, big line. So we're looking at the S&P for like 100 years here, and you'll notice, again, there's the 1929 blow off. There's the .com, and then we're basically touching those same kind of levels right here on the S&P 500. So, yeah, I mean, this should be pretty strong resistance. obviously, you know, anything can happen, and it's possible to get above this resistance and maybe hang out here for a period of time. But it is something that you look at and you're like, yeah, that's, you know, this should act as some major resistance. So for like some big pullback, at least a pullback. But anyways, yeah, I mean, that's where the S&P is at the moment. Oh, you know, let's take a fun little look here. Let's go to Nvidia. So this white line right here is when I tweeted, I said Nvidia is not a bubble. It's a defense stock now, as far as I'm concerned. And yeah, I mean, basically Nvidia has proven exactly that, right? It's been, what has it been? Like 6 months now almost. When was that? Yeah, that would be June. Yeah, so it's been basically 6 months now, and Nvidia continues towards the upside. Like, maybe it's not going to smash towards the upside like it has been, but I mean, Nvidia is, you know, I mean, it's still up 10%. And for stocks, you know, that's a nice gain, right? 10% is a nice gain. Nvidia is not a bubble; it's a defense stock, and the government needs as many GPUs as they can get so they can track and monitor and trace you on their chain analysis in every other which way that you can think of. Okay, so that's stocks, and then let's go take a look at bonds really quick. Bonds actually maybe surprised me a little bit. They actually, the bonds came up. So the Federal Reserve lowered rates and the bonds came up. I guess it was one of those you know, like distractions, if you will, almost, where it's like where you're kind of like, you know, look here, don't look here, right? Because everyone is expecting the Fed to raise rates, and so it was like the reverse thing happened. I don't know. That's, you know what, all that just sounds like a bunch of nonsense to me. So whatever I just said was probably nonsense. Anyways, bonds went up. This looks like a peak to me. This looks like a local high. It looks to me like bonds are probably most likely going to start moving down. And if they do, again, bonds moving back down here and then making a lower low is another sign to us that, yes, the macro crash thesis continues to unfold. Perhaps the inversion, which is the red lines, right? The inversion continues to uninvert. At this moment, bonds are fully uninverted now. I mean, they're still basically at the 0 point, right? So it's not like they're totally uninverted, but I mean, they are not inverted anymore, right? They're not in the negative anymore. So again, you know, like we've talked about since forever, we're looking for the inversion to move towards the upside. We're looking for yields to starting to occur. These are the signs that tell you it's imminent, it's incipient, right? Sell your bag, smash the sell button, and then wait for that rebuy moment. We're not there yet, but I'm just trying to impress upon you the kinds of things that we're looking for so that you on your own time can look at them and know what you're looking at and maybe make some plays, make some moves when that time comes, if you are so inclined, right? After that, I guess we had some CPI numbers. I don't think this really matters too much anymore. This chart only matters if it goes up or down by a significant amount, and we'll only see that after the fact. So I mean, inflation is still running a little bit hot, but overall, it's pretty close to in trend for the last 20 years now. The core inflation is still a little bit higher, but the CPI and the PPI are like exactly back in trend now. So, yeah, this chart doesn't really matter too much, but I just kind of wanted to show it to you so that I could tell you that it doesn't matter. But you matter, all of you matter to me. Federal Reserve balance sheet continues to decline. M2 money continues to go up. This is a very interesting situation. We've never seen it where the balance sheet is declining, but the M2 is going up. So those are kind of offsetting, counter, you know, like acting counter to each other. Overall, probably neutral. One thing we can look at to actually divinate that what the overall balance is there. We can look at the Federal Reserve liquidity, and that's in green. The Federal Reserve liquidity, the U.S. Overall like monetary liquidity is in. Actually, is it in green? Hang on, I'm pretty sure. I usually put the U.S. stuff in green. Yeah. Okay, so the green is U.S. liquidity. So you can basically see effectively that U.S. liquidity is just flat, right? Like it's just flat for quite a while now, drifting towards the upside. So it looks like more M2 is being printed than the Federal Reserve is selling its balance sheet. So yeah, overall, we're getting a little bit more liquidity, which is probably, you know, fueling the modest gains in the stock market. So let's go ahead and check these comments and the questions. So we have Shortwave Surfer 2009 says, how do you add leverage to XMR? I don't know why you would necessarily want to do that, but probably Kraken, right? The problem with leverage is you need a centralized counterparty to manage that contract for you. So if you want to add leverage to XMR, or do you mean like, are you talking like a Michael Saylor? Like, how do we pull a Saylor and add leverage to pump the price of XMR? I guess we need a big bro out there, right, with access to the banking system to finagle that price higher, right? Or we could just we could just redheaded stepchild the leverage that was added to the rest of cryptocurrency. But to do that, you guys need gains, right? Everyone, like, you need gains in shit coins and bullshit markets. You need big gains there, and then you got to roll those into XMR. That's one way that we can push the price of XMR up. It does require some trading. I hate trading. I really do. I try to do very little of it. I try to just position myself and then take little plays here and there. You know, I take plays. I'm like, if I lose everything, whatever, I don't care. I'll ride this down to zero. I don't give two shits about it. But, you know, when you get a 5x or 10x, it's like, oh, wow, that was actually a nice gain. So it's a way to like limit me taking risk. But, you know, everyone's at a different spot. That depends on how big your stack is, what your income looks like from your day job, if you have one of those. Do you have a family? Are you young? Are you old? You know, like, what kinds of risk can you take, et cetera. So anyways, just things to think about if you're trying to develop a strategy for yourself. Okay, let's see here. Gold is a decent savings account, 100%. Yeah, I mean, that is what gold is for. Like, this is the way central banks use it. And I hate to agree with central banks and JPOW, but gold is for reserves. That is like your reserve position. If terrible shit happens, it keeps you in a good spot if like just the world goes to shit. Otherwise, it overall keeps up with inflation as the years go by. In fits and starts, sometimes you get big gains. Other times you languish behind the market for years. But overall, gold is, you know, especially if you buy it at the right times, if you buy it after it's had a big drop, you use gold as a savings vehicle, and it's a good way. If you don't want to tether, it's a good way after you get gains to keep your gains in cryptocurrency. I think it's a really good idea to go to a gold bullion vault that accepts crypto and just buy gold. It's also a good way for jurisdictional risk mitigation, jurisdictional arbitrage, right? You might have your gold account in some other jurisdiction than your home country. You know, it's the flag theory, right? You're putting little flags in different places. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket, you know, and wherever your gold vault is, you know, you don't want to have your banking only in one country and that maybe that country shuts you down. So yeah, it's one of those things that you can use for jurisdictional arbitrage. Obviously, that involves custody, which is a little bit of an anathema to the kinds of mentality that we have here. Nevertheless, it can be the case that custody protects you against yourself, right? Or protects you against wrench attacks, right? Potentially, maybe yes, maybe no, right? But like, it depends on the case. But custody can protect you against yourself in some cases, where it's like, oh shit, I totally pwned my system and I got hacked or whatever. But you know, I have some other account that wasn't on that system. I don't know. Anyways, things to think about. Stonks go up. Stonks always go up. Indeed, almost always. You rarely win with leverage. Too many historical examples to the negative. Yeah, that's definitely true. Like, if you're gonna play with leverage, you have got to get algorithmic. You've got to get scientific and mathematic on that shit. Like, there's no other way to play leverage than to really, really know that system. So if you want to play leverage, start with something that you don't care if you lose. Start with $1. Start with $100. The one time that I might recommend some of you guys use leverage is after a big macro crash and an intervention, right? You might go in with leverage at that point saying, all right, you know, the crash happened, the intervention happened. It's been a few weeks. The markets are on their way back up. I'm going long, right? Like, you could do that. You can use that. Be careful. Stay like 2x, 3x, maximum 5x leverage, maximum 5. You know, stay low on your leverage. Take profit early, right? Don't get greedy. And then just roll that, like, take that profit and then roll it into the actual coin. That's your safest way to play with leverage. I think I've told you guys this story before. Here's 2022. It's September. And everyone's telling me that it's the bottom of the market and that Bowdy, you're crazy, and we're not going lower. And I'm like, if I could reach through the screen and slap you, I would. We are going lower. New lows are on the table. And so I put my money where my mouth was. I put some leverage across the board. I did cross margin leverage on like Doge and Litecoin and Bcash and what else? Like FTT, Sol. I mean, I was just like, I had like 5 to 7 positions, just cross margin leverage. But guess what? Musk buys Twitter October 2022 and Doge pumps 2x. And because I'm cross margined and not isolated margined, it wipes out all of my positions. And that would have been a pretty penny. It was money I could afford to lose, but the thing that hurt the most was watching 3 weeks later the market just go to shit and just being like, holy crap, that was a nice fat chunk of change that I would have made there if I hadn't gotten wiped out on leverage. So I was right. The point of this is I was right. The market was going to crash. I was leveraged short the market, and that was the right position to be, except for I made a mistake by going cross margin, and Doge wiped me out when Doge pumped on the Musk Twitter buy. So that's just one example of how you can get wiped out with leverage, even if you're right? Even if you make a fantastic call, you could still get wiped out. by a little mistake, and it happens all the time. I've done it too many times. You press the wrong button. You accidentally put that slider a little bit too far to the right. Things like that. So, or not totally understanding the way that the orders are, the different types of orders you can make, and thinking you're doing one thing and actually doing something else. So, it's a tough game. Just be careful if you want to do it. There are some people, if you're detail oriented, like if you have really good attention to detail, leverage might be for you. You might be able to make that work. But if you don't have good attention to detail, you probably just want to avoid leverage in general. So, yeah. I don't think we have any more comments. Yeah, that's about it. That's about all I got for you guys, unless there's any questions that I missed or something that you guys want to take a look at. Shout out now. If you want to look at something, speak now or forever hold your peace. Going once. Going twice. Back to Tux and Doug.
All right. Got a lot of live viewers, 375 live viewers right now, guys.
Nice. Welcome. Smash that like.
Thank you, buddy. Thank you, buddy. So, dude, overall, when, if ever, would you expect to see Monero catch some of the bull market?
In the bear market.
Wow.
I mean, it seems like Monero has
Nothing,
done the best relative to other coins in the bear market, right? Because we have actual organic support for our price. It's not leverage bullshit. So our price stays more stable during bear markets. Probably at the tail end, man. Like we'll probably catch something towards the tail end. That's when I would expect to see it.
Now, we'll probably get more into this in the news and whatnot, but any opinion on what you think the new administration's effect might be on policies that could affect access to Monero?
Maybe they'll relax a little bit. Maybe we'll see the cessation of the delistings, right? Maybe that'll happen. Like maybe we'll catch a 4-year break here where, I mean, because the next thing in my mind is they're going to try and hit the states. If they're going to try and do it, and they probably will, it's kind of how they are. They'll hit the states individually, one at a time, right? They'll find California, right? They'll be like, hey, California, why don't you delist that Monero crap? And they'll be like, yeah, we love being communists. So like that's kind of what I would expect to see, but maybe we'll get a cessation of that for 4 years. I don't know if necessarily we can expect that the current administration is going to do anything that's all that great for for Monero adoption, or that's going to push that needle in a positive direction, but at least it's not moving further in a negative direction. I don't know, man.
Okay,
I feel like
I kind of see this. I kind of see it. Go ahead, Tux.
I was just saying that I feel like at this point, the copium of people will finally realize Monero's value will not be to the same degree of what people see as happening to Bitcoin. Because if you want to make those big bucks, you have to be allowed to, which is why Bitcoin's so high. And that's why Bitcoin is, at least it was when it was, before this bull market. Maybe now it's not as much, but it was a good investment. It was safe because it's got all this money in it, right? It's been accepted. It's been allowed. Monero's never going to have that. So even if there is natural demand, it's never going to skyrocket to the same degree that Bitcoin is. I just don't think that's ever going to happen.
Yeah, I would agree.
Which is sad. It's really sad to say, but just the fact that it's where it is right now is still a pretty good indicator that Monero is used and has its own value. And yeah, I like your points of why Monero's not pumping, why Xano's not pumping. Yeah, Zcash pumping is funny. That's weird. It's pumping a lot. It's just because that's not where the money is going. The forced pump is going. It's not going into the privacy coins because they don't want it to. They don't want to promote those.
Yep. I mean, it's one of those things, you just Monero and in general, the markets in 2021, I used to sort of have this organic rational market hypothesis. And then the market forced me to reevaluate that. And so it's like, okay, that's not how markets are, but you know what? That's fine. we can live with that. We could deal with that. We just need to know what we're getting into and change our chess moves accordingly. Change our strategy.
Yeah, we'll
Although
see.
that
We'll
law,
see
what was that law of someone's law chart that had a theoretical Monero real value? Although it's nice to look at and imagine.
Oh yeah, that was
I forget what that was called.
Monero with a J.net. MoneroJ.net.
The Monero website, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they were comparing the stock to flow, Bitcoin stock to flow, Monero stock to flow, and then like I think also maybe also they incorporated Metcalfe's law. I think that's the one you're talking about.
Yeah, that was it. It's Metcalfe's law.
And they were like, Monero's price should be here, you know, but it's down here. And it was interesting that that seemed to correlate with the moment that Binance started fractional reserving Monero.
Yeah, I remember you did a little bit of a look into that.
Yeah, I was part of the XMR Trader sub at the time. I was on Reddit at the time, not Twitter, and mostly it was like I was kind of half of a personal journal and half of like a discussion debate platform where I could just like, you know, because I was really trying to understand markets. I was like, okay, like what the hell's going on here? So I was just trading ideas with a bunch of guys, you know, on the XMR Trader sub and you know Monero and a cryptocurrency sub, and yeah, so there was maybe like probably about maybe like 4 to 10 of us or 5 to 10 of us that were sort of examining the evidence of what was happening with Binance. And, you know, because at first we sounded like crazy, you know, nut jobs, like, oh, my price didn't go up enough, so I'm going to cry about Binance. But eventually it was like, no, every stone we turned under, like we could look and point at very clear things that were happening that, you know, and then obviously we did the Mona run and then they couldn't keep none of the exchanges could keep their withdrawals open except for Kraken. So we were, yeah, I mean, that was the smoking gun. Like, yes, they're fractionally reserving. They're absorbing buy pressure by selling Monero that they don't have, so that keeps the price from going up. Like that's just what they did. Like it's like not even a question now. That's just what the evidence says.
Neil has tipped $1.23. Welcome back, guys. Hope we'll be able to watch the conference video somewhere. There must have been a ton of cool talks I missed. Yeah, we'll post them. We'll probably post them all kind of at once. We'll do like a premiere. We'll basically rebroadcast them over the course of 4 days. I don't know when we'll have that ready, but we'll do it at some point. What do you got? I mean, kind of related to this topic, but I mean, do you think the Monero community should be coordinating on a higher level to perhaps lobby for Monero, right? Like we've seen Zcash do. Is like, are we at that point in time? It seems like it could be a good time to do that, given the administration, that they'd be amenable to having conversations around the need for a digital cash utility. Like, I think the Monero community, obviously, because we're so decentralized, we really lack in those areas. But there's really no reason why we can't create movements and raise money and you know, fund projects towards those efforts, or even potentially trying to advocate for getting Monero listed on more exchanges. Like, I know that's like, we always talk about not caring about it. We have Sarai Dex coming up. We have Avino. Monero is building these decentralized bridges. But why not take advantage of where we're at potentially in the arc of adoption and kind of where the zeitgeist is at, and try to get Monero adoption to grow on a more mainstream level?
I suppose that I see both positives here. On the one hand, if we don't do that, then we take the momentum that we have and we continue to build the decentralized solutions. We start to onboard to them, liquidity shows up, and you see a real organic, completely decentralized ecosystem that was supposed to be the case, 10 years ago. That's supposed to be how things were supposed to go, and then they all got co-opted by the government, right? I think Monero is too strong to really actually get co-opted by the government, which sounds a little bit starry-eyed moon boy, I guess. But even if the government got involved and said, "Hey, actually, we lobbied them to include more Monero, to be more inclusive to the Monero bros," I don't think that Monero would be that easily overtaken, that easily co-opted. I think partially in large part because we've seen that story before. So we're kind of, we've been inoculated against such things. And at the same time, if those efforts are successful, right, to lobby the government, hey, we're fine, we should be on exchanges, you should declare us like unequivocally legal to be on exchanges, and then we actually see relistings, that'll be massive for the price. Like we'll probably 10x, like 5 or 10x overnight almost, if that happens. So that would be good for price, obviously, which is interesting. And obviously that would be good for adoption, right? You get a lot of visibility there if such a thing happens. So
I'm just saying, I think it could be time to, coordinate on that level and try to push for relistings.
I mean, if there was a time to do it, now would probably be the time to start, to set those wheels in motion to make those things happen. So if you were so inclined to ask the government for things, then definitely now would be, I mean, I would agree. It would be the time. You like the way I phrased that?
Exactly. Yeah. I know, man. I know. Yeah, I know you don't want to deal with these mafias, but
I understand why people do, and I understand the benefits that can come from doing so, and it would probably benefit our price, which would obviously benefit my own personal bags as well. And now with Trump, with the lip, at least they have to give the lip service, like then maybe so like they included they Kennedy's back on, he's back on for the NHS. I think we all screamed loud enough that was bullshit, that they had to make that concession. So yeah, I mean, now is the time for concessions. Maybe you're right.